Howdy folks, this is Rob with MTG Investor, and I'm just doing a follow-up to my top 5 modern investment cards. I was going to break down the Onslaught and Khans of Tarkir fetch lands and kind of give you a tiny bit more analysis. I've made a little spreadsheet here showing the individual fetch lands. So, here we have the individual fetch lands down. Here is the current Khans prices on eBay. So this is what you can buy them for on eBay. If you buy them on one of the big box websites like Star City, Channel Fireball, you're going to pay a little bit more. But here are the current full prices. Now these fluctuate a little bit on a day-to-day basis. So you might have one that say on like Pluto Delta that might be 65, but it's got some higher cost in shipping, or you might have all these prices include shipping. You might have a 75. So it's basically just an aggregate of those prices. Closest I could get. So here are the prices here. Now, before I jump over to Onslaught, here's the ratio. And you'll hear me talk about in my videos the ratio of the regular card to the foil card. And that's a relevant, very, very relevant factor in my opinion in evaluating cards. Because the way I look at it is, if you know about stocks have what's called a PE ratio, which is the price to earnings ratio. And you take the price of the stock and then you divide it by the EPS, which is the earnings per share, and that'll give you the PE ratio of a stock. And so to me, this is kind of the PE ratio of Magic cards. So this tells me that the full Pluto Delta is selling at 6 times the value of the regular one, approximately. Okay, there's a little bit of rounding going on here. But anyway, Pluto Delta and Flooded Strand are pretty close there. They got a 6-to-1 ratio. Windswept Heath is a 4-to-1 ratio, and as is Wooded Foothills and Bloodstained Mire. Now, what does that mean? The better the foil, the higher the ratio that will go. But when you get crazy ratios, then that can mean a few things. That means either the foil version needs to come down in price, or it means that the regular version is going to go up in price to kind of get down to a ratio that's proper for a foil to non-foil ratio. This may sound like a bunch of hogwash to some people, but I actually do look at this because I think there is a definite relevance. When you look at, say, Jace, when Jace was at its most, it was at a 8-to-1 ratio. So like I said, the very top cards usually are at 8-to-1 ratios. Like if you look over here at Onslaught, you'll see these first 3 are at an 8-to-1 ratio. They've stayed at that, and when they were at their highs, they were at 8-to-1 ratios. So 8-to-1 is usually the max. When a card's at like a 2-to-1 ratio, then that has a lot of potential for growth. Doesn't mean it's going to grow. It's not a flag to say, yes, get the full on this. You have to look at the other aspects, just like on a PE ratio on a stock. That's not the only way you can judge a stock. But that's one of the key factors when you're going to look at a stock. There's a lot of factors you're going to look at, not just PE ratio. So anyway, the more playable cards, and this right here is right in line. Pluto Delta and Flooded Strand are obviously the 2 most played fetches because they're the blue ones, right? So they're at the 6-to-1 ratio. These over here are the green and black, or green and red, and they're at the 4-to-1 ratio. So that's in line with each other. Over here on Onslaught, let's take a look at Onslaught and a few things about Onslaught. As I mentioned in my top 5 video when I talked about fetches, I mentioned that I had been buying fetches for the last few months, and that recently I have started picking up Onslaught fetches because the prices on these have plummeted so low. If you have an opportunity, or let me not single out you, the individual viewer, let me say the average Magic player, if they have an opportunity to pick up a Khans fetch land or an Onslaught fetch land, almost all of them are going to choose to go with the Onslaught. Yeah, just about everybody's going to take the Onslaught. I'm not usually really picky about my cards. I mean, we all have our favorite things. I have my favorite lands that I play with. I almost always play with Ice Age lands. That's just the way I've been doing it since Ice Age came out. And so anyway, I want Onslaught lands over Cons lands. I like the art on them in general better. I do like the Flooded Strand on the Cons. Some people don't like it, but I like the little dragon submerge. I think that's pretty cool. But the art's not bad on the Cons ones. It's good art, but I just like the Onslaught ones. Mainly for me, it's the border of the card. I'm a old schooler, and I can't stand the newer borders on the card when they've been around for a few years now, but still can't stand that. Anyway, like most people want Onslaught over Cons. So look at some of the price differences here. These prices have just plummeted. The Polluted Delta for Onslaught was trading at a high of $115. $115. That was the median value on TCG. $115 was the high it got to. It most commonly was trading for the most lengthy period of time at about 90, meaning it spiked to 115, but for the majority of the time it plateaued around 90. So I kind of look at that as like as its basis. And let's go ahead and look at Flooded Strand. Flooded Strand was trading, its high was at 90, and its common baseline, high baseline, was at 70. It kind of plateaued at 70, and it did spike up and move to 90 for a little bit before it came back down. Windswept Heath, this high was 45, and it commonly plateaued at 42, so not a big difference between those two. Wooded Foothill, it spiked to 45, was commonly trading around 40, so not a big difference between those two. Bloodstained Mire, it spiked high 40 to 44, somewhere in that range, and it commonly was at its high plateau of 35 to 40. The numbers on this one fluctuate a little more because it's the least popular one. And what does that tell us? Here's the ratios that they're currently at right now. So the ratio of these two numbers are 8 to 1, 8 to 1, 8 to 1, 5 to 1, 5 to 1. But when I look at the numbers here, the Polluted Delta 12 versus 27. So we're basically 120 and 110% more, something like that, 115, 20% more. Somewhere in there. So it's just a little over double the price. Flooded Strand is almost exactly double the price from Onslaught to Cons. Windswept Heath, it's only 50% more. So it's from 10 to 15, 50% more. Wooded Foothills is close. It's 80% more. Bloodstained Mires is about 90. What is that? About 90-ish%, somewhere in there. Percent higher. So of all these numbers, what do all these numbers mean? Well, to me, I've been looking at this, and there's some things that stick in my mind. This one right here, Windswept Heath. Let me fill that in right there with yellow. This one right here is the one that jumps out at me because so this is where I would want to put my money, and the reason is because these three right here are trading at 8 to 1 right now, and the Onslaught Full is going for about 120. On SCG, I think they're asking 200 for it. But what I'm seeing, if you remember the prices I told you, this peaked at 45, but was common trading at 42. So that means that its high it's close to its common. So it stayed pretty close to what its common was. If this moves close, if this 8 to 1 ratio moves closer to the 4 to 1 ratio, then that tells me that most likely this price is going to move more significantly than all the other ones on here. If this is going to accelerate, if it's going to come back down to the 4 to 1 ratio. The other thing is that this Windswept Heath and Cons is $10. The Onslaught one's only 50% more. Remember the other ones were 80% more, 90% more, a little over 100% more, 115-ish, 20% more. So this one is the cheapest one that you can get a hold of value-wise, meaning to me, these two things are signaling that this card has the most potential to increase in value percentage-wise, not dollar-wise, percentage-wise. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. So if I can get them at 15 right now, and if they go back to say 35 or 40, then, or even their highs of 45, then this one stands to get me the most dollars in return, the biggest return on investment compared to the other ones. So that means this one has more room for growth, is what I'm saying. Now, we don't know how I don't know what the effect of the cons pricing is going to do on the onslaught ones in the long run. I don't know if these are going to return to their original common high plateau values, not necessarily their highs, but their high plateau. They could, because although there's a ton of cons fetches in the environment, and they were in the Fates Reforged booster boxes, and there was like about 4 per box, something like that. I don't know how flooded those are going to be. There's a lot of people that are holding on to cons fetches, and as they should be, if they want to see some price gains. And I don't know. There will come a time in the future. I don't know how long this is going to take. It might take 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. That these cons fetches are going to be soaked up, and new players. There's going to be so many new players and returning players come in. They're going to absorb all those extra cons fetches, and then those prices are going to start moving quite a bit again. Just like for the longest time, back when I played Extended, the old Modern. The onslaught fetches were not insanely expensive. Like the high ones were like 20, the blue ones were 20 bucks, 25 bucks, but I remember them being $18 to $20, and the 3 here were, $10 to $12. And it was that way for a long time. These prices on these fetch lands only started getting ridiculously insane when the SCG legacy tournaments started picking up in popularity. Then all this started getting crazy. See, so here's the deal. Remember how I told you there's a lot of things that change or influence opinions on stocks, and PE ratio might be one. All these numbers that I'm throwing at you, they might mean one thing. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong on them, but you have to factor in all these other factors. People did not realize at the time how influential the Star City Games standard and then Sunday legacy tournaments would influence Magic cards, especially older Magic cards. It shot the values of cards through the roof on older cards and even newer cards. I mean, it just totally ridiculously manipulated the prices. It's doing that right now for standard cards. Since they changed to this new format where they have standard, the Grand Prix style tournaments were standard on Saturday standard. What did they do? 5 rounds plus top 8 or something on Sunday, something like that. Can't remember exactly. The price of the price of standard cards has really have a massive spike in prices. So, for instance, Death Miss Raptor, that was one of the cards when I was speculating. I called it speculation, but when the Dragons cards were being spoiled, I did not see Death Miss Raptor doing well. Straight up admit that I didn't think it would do well in standard, and it saw play right out of the gate, and it jumped from $7 to $20, just like bam in one weekend when it got played in the mono green deck. Now it's still getting played, but SCG is still selling it for like $19 or something like that. I still feel like that card is so far overvalued. Again, I don't invest in standard cards, so to being wrong on that, it doesn't bother me one bit at all, because I'm only looking long term. And long term, I think Death Miss Raptor is a really crappy card to be holding on to long term. I would definitely be out of them in standard. And hey, I'm wrong sometimes. Sometimes I'm wrong. Maybe it's going to be a modern great card, but I don't see it happening. So anyway, that's the big spice. That card jumped, basically 200% in addition to its value. So from 7 to 20 in one weekend, those kind of price spikes can only happen in the market the market of magic cards if you have something to warp its price value. And that's what the current SCG standard format is doing, is warping the price values on cards. Standard is crazy to me right now. Dragon Lord Ojutai is like, how much is that card now? $25, $30? I don't even know. I borrow cards from a friend to play Standard for the most part. The only time I really buy I borrow Standard cards from a friend to play Standard, who is a very active Magic player, and because I just don't want to be in Standard. I don't want to spend $80 on a playset of Death Mist Raptors when, in my opinion, after they rotate out of Standard, they're going to be $2 a card, and it's going to go down to $8. I don't want to lose $70, $2 in card value. So sorry, I'm getting a little off topic here. So that's why I like investing in modern cards and commander cards and legacy cards or even vintage cards, is because the price spikes on those are not as crazy ridiculous as what's going on in Standard right now. So personally, if I were playing Standard very actively right now, I'd probably want to be in with a group of friends that we all kind of share cards, just because it's not that I can't afford it. I can totally afford to play Standard, but I'm also frugal. I don't like to throw my money away. So I mean, that's how wealthy people are, and that's why I want to be that way, because I want to be a very wealthy person. So I don't like to just throw money at things. I want to be smart with my money. Anyway, so I'm all about Windswept Heath and Onslaught right now, and those are where I'm at picking up right now. But I'm also picking up Polluted Delta and Flooded Strands, because you never know. I really think these guys could make a return to high prices. I really think those could get up. I really think those will probably go up to about at least 60, I would guess. And honestly, 75 is pretty reasonable to me, the triple in price. These guys over here in the cons, I could see Polluted Delta not taking too long. These are all contingent on rotating out of Standard, basically. And once that happens, I could see Polluted Deltas kind of slowly start moving up and Flooded Strands start moving up. Back in the early days, Flooded Strand was the best dual land. Well, fetch land. Tundra was the best dual land. Blue-white was the more heavily played. Now it's Polluted Delta. And so, these things could change depending on what decks are popular. And who knows, but blue has been dominant since the beginning of Magic. Nothing has changed that. And I don't see that changing anytime in the next 10 to 20 years. So those guys will probably always dominate right there. But anyway, these two I could see this guy right here, this Polluted Delta, and this Flooded Strand, which I'm all about those right now also. So these are the ones that the ones here in yellow. These are the ones I'm really focusing on. The Windswept Heath would be my first. Let me put orange on that. That's my first pick right there as far as my favorite investment on this page, this Windswept Heath from Onslaught. And depending on how much money you have, personally, let's say, I think I mentioned in the last video for fetch lands, I'm trying to pick up $100 to $150 a month worth of fetch lands. So 4 Flooded Strands, $100, and then 4 Windswept Heath would be $60. So that might be right there what I pick up or something this month. But sometimes when I'm on eBay, like I'll just look, and if I find a Flooded Strand, somebody lists to buy it now, Flooded Strand $23, bam, I'll just buy the single if I have to. I have no problem buying single cards if I can get them cheaper that way. Another good strategy on eBay, if you're not familiar with eBay strategies, is when you search for cards, first search for cards with misspellings. So if a common misspelling right here on Polluted Delta is that they spell it Pollutted. Check misspellings. I've been able to pick up really good cards at cheap prices in the past by just kind of checking misspellings on cards, common misspellings. So keep that in mind. Another thing is to look for buying cards in 2s and 3s, because the cards are most commonly sold in four ofs or as singles. So they're not as commonly sold as 2 and 3s of. So when people want to buy cards, usually they're wanting to buy 1 or they're wanting to buy 4. And so look for Pluto Delta. So do a search of Pluto Delta of times 4. Do a search of Pluto Delta times 3 and times 2, because sometimes you can get if you're bidding, you really want to check on bidding ones of those, like where you're not buy it now. I generally I just prefer buy it nows, just because that's the kind of, I know I said I like to try to save money, and usually the buy it now and the bidding are pretty close and similar. But for me, at the age I am and having a family and kids and busy career, I don't have time to sit around and check bids and wait for things to happen like that. So I just rather buy now. If on 2s and 3s though, sometimes I'll just throw some bids down, and if they stick, they stick. I'll just lowball something and or go under by $4 or $5. And if I get it, I get it. That's awesome. I saved myself $4 or $5. If not, I'm not. But the 2s and 3s are the best ones to do that on. So anyway, again, these are the 5 I'm really on most. I don't think you can go wrong with any of the cards on this list, though. So if I have a chance to get a Bloodstained Mire from Cons in a trade, hey, I'm on it, man. I'll take it. Don't have to ask me twice. Wooded Foothills, Windswept Heaths. Also, I think... well, it's just gonna depend. I was gonna say, I think Windswept Heath is a little better than Wooded Foothills, but it's not a big difference. So whatever ones you want to get on these, keep in mind if these ratios move to these ratios, that these foils right here are going to be good investments right here. If you can, well, let's choose a different color to look at that. So these Cons foils, if you want to get foils are going to be good. So if this 6-to-1 ratio moves to the 8-1 ratio, then this is going to go up to $96. And then, of course, the regular one's going to go up, so that means this one's going to go up. So legacy players and vintage players and EDH players love foils, so in general. So any of these foils are good to go, good to get. These foils over here, these Onslaught foils, those are really pricey, and if you have the money to get them, I guess go for it if you want. They're probably going to move back up in value, but I personally probably would just get the Cons foils. I mean, if it's something you're going to play with and you want a particular one, that's great, go for it. If it's going to be something you play, but if you're just looking for investment, I think the Cons foils, they're probably both going to be about even percentage-wise. It's just that, would you rather spend $70 and get the same percentage, or $225? If you spend $70 and $225, so this is if you buy this one, you have $150 more to spend on something else. So I kind of babbled on this video. Sorry about that, guys. But I did want to cover some of these things. If there's some little thoughts you have on these that I didn't throw out there, I would really, really love to hear your feedback. I am always looking to learn, so if you have some strategy that you know or some information that you know, by all means, please leave me a message or even just post on this video. I'm always looking to learn if you want to teach me something. Again, I don't know everything about investing in Magic cards. I'm not telling you to do everything that I say. As a reminder, you have to invest, buy, sell, and trade Magic cards at your own risk. I just find it enjoyable. I'm probably going to make a little video. I got a lot of videos to make. I keep telling you all these videos I want to make. But Probably going to make a video and weigh in on the reprint, um, the whole reprint issue. I will tell you up front, I don't have a problem with reprinting cards as long as and it doesn't bug me. And you might think as an investor it might bug me that they reprint cards. It really doesn't, because I understand the risk. Just like in stocks, I understand the risk. When I invest in a stock, I understand there's going to be a risk. And I invest in magic cards, I understand there's going to be a risk. And I see so many people hating on people who invest in cards or speculate on cards. But I don't see why that's a bad thing at all. I totally don't. There's a saying, and I'm sure most of you have probably heard this before, but it goes like this: do what you love and the money will follow. Which is basically saying in your life, if you do what you love for a career, then every day you're not going to go to work, you're going to go to have fun and play. And your enthusiasm and your positive attitude and the way that you look at your life because you're loving what you're doing on a daily basis, it's going to influence all the people around you. They're going to want to be around you. They're going to want to work with you. People are going to invest in you. And so when you can do that, then you're a happy man or woman. And that's basically what that philosophy means, that if you work hard enough, eventually you're going to make money at what you love. And I've always loved magic since even when I was introduced to it, I didn't start playing it at Arabian Nights, but I saw it and I was like, I really like that. I just wasn't in a place in my life where I was ready to jump into it because I was going to be moving across the country, and financially I was saving my money. Of course, I was just a young kiddo. Well, I was an adult, but I was a young adult. And so anyway, I like playing Magic. I just don't have as much time to play it anymore. But I usually spend my weekends, if I'm home or in town, I will watch the SCG. I love watching the SCG tournaments. Totally, totally love it. I love watching Pro Tours. And when SCG rolls through, or TCG or any of these other tournament series roll through my neck of the woods in Texas, I'm there. Grand Prix rolls through, I'm there. If it's Austin or Houston or San Antonio or Dallas or Fort Worth or you name it, I'll go play it if I'm in town. So anyway, this has been Rob, and I have talked too much now, so I'm gonna cut off. And please leave me any responses or ideas or any feedback. I really appreciate it. I've been getting a lot of great feedback, and of course I love hearing that. But some people have left me some good feedback on how I could improve, and totally want to do that. I totally want to get better as a human being. So anyway, I will check you guys later. Happy trading.